Hi, and welcome to this video submission for Fate Samurai Remnant New Game Plus Fatal Soul Difficulty with DLC by Neo. However, am not Neo, because Neo unfortunately cannot speak in English. We thank him for still submitting, and has asked of me, GP, also known as Cute Fangies, to do some commentary. So I'll be providing this commentary for this submission, and unless something terrible happens, I should be also on commentary for any representation on Marathon. In any case, here you have on screen the FSR PB of Neo on Fatal Sword on PC. To note, there is a difference between console and PC. PC has access to the load removable time, and that's what we're going to be timing the game with, but don't worry, there's not much time difference between RTA and LRT. As the game starts right now, we've been starting at the chapter 2 because the game is pretty kind like that, and therefore we can skip just a giant section of dialogue and tutorializing that ends with a giant fight between two masters, Yuri and Chiemon, who are basically part of this waxing ritual, this waxing moon ritual, which is kind of taking over in the period of peace that is Edo currently. Chapter 2 starts basically as we got out of that fight and we just got rescued by Zhen Chenggong, who is a Chinese general and has been living in Japan for a little bit as part of good relations. Shen Chenggong is also part of the Waximo ritual, and his servant is Archer. Do not worry, I won't be spoiling anything about that. But right now, we're basically deep into the story of the battle is starting. We're trying to build and mount different forces, and all forces are basically tied with Zhen because we decided to ally with him. As you can see here, our main protagonist Yuri is going to move around and is going to be doing a lot of things. In Chapter 2, we're going to be mostly doing some researching. And that starts mostly by traveling around the area of Tokyo at the time Edo. So here we get to one of the first things about the game, which is Leyline Conflicts, Spirit Lines Conflicts. Those are basically sort of like TRPG sections, and they go very fast. For example, here we just used two movements. We used a darting dragon to augment our number of movements per turn, and then we used the Earth Arts to teleport ourselves, and now we can clean this section very fast and get access to the final section. You will see then that there is going to be a Saber Intercept. That means an enemy has tried to invade our own spirit lines, and we just took them over thanks to Saber. Now, New Game Plus means we get access to a lot of powerful tools, and for example here we see Yuri using the Earth Stance Valor Strike. The Valor Strike is a giant move that is used by Yuri and is charged by the yellow bar you can see underneath the HP bar. Very fast dispatch of this serpent. Very good job from Neo. And to note, there is kind of a specific difference in fighting. We're gonna see more of it later. But you might have seen that before the fights, Neo is actually gonna be eating food. And eating that food is very important because in Fatal Sword, you cannot restore your health, nor your affinity gauge, nor any other gauge during the fighting. So you need to prepare your food before the fighting. And that leads to actually pre-planning a lot of your consumables, because a lot of fights are made faster by using those powerful tools. And the game becomes sort of a puzzle that is kind of reminiscent of New Game if you have seen my own runs. And you just have this giant puzzle that you need to manage your own tools into making. And that makes the run very interesting. And especially on Fatal Sword. Fatal Sword is the hardest difficulty in the entire game, and to be able to clear it in 2 hours is amazing. It's an incredible feat of gameplay. So here we had a little minigame. This minigame is only gonna appear once, so it's not that important. And here we get to face some pirates. And we're gonna take them down with some magic. Yuri is capable of doing a little bit of magecraft, but mostly here what we saw was Agni's Crash Wave, which is actually a powerful tool that is unlocked by getting great relations with Arjuna, the rogue archer in this game. Now that we have finished everything we needed to do with that Spirit Fund conflict, we're gonna go into our next section, which is gonna be a little trip to Zojoji, a temple on the outskirts of Tokyo. I'm sorry, the game is gonna go very fast, but that's very interesting. Here you can see there is a little font. Neo's not gonna take those, but because the loadout is completely full, we have all of the food we need for the run just with us. You might be noticing that specifically we're going to be doing a lot of things just in this first thing. We're going to start a schism with Saber, which is the super attack that they're doing right now, and then launch into a Valor Strike, and then go into another Valor Strike in between, with the schism in between them. And that defeats Lancer very, very fast. It's always ridiculous because in New Game you go, so you're trying to do your best to skip a lot of things, and here you can just annihilate moves very quickly. So here we're switching to another section of the map, which is Shinagawa, where we're gonna actually be trying to get into the port because we believe there's something important there. That is very of big interest. But the problem is that we can't get access. We're not a merchant, so we need to go to ask the headmaster, "Hey, can we get access to the port?" And they're like, you're gonna have to search those very specific 3 things that are on this mountain on the other side. The mountain on the other side, which is unfortunately blocked from access because the bridge is also blocked. But don't worry, thanks to the power of Saber, we can use water powers. And now, all of this floating wood is actually useful for us. Very fast movement. And so, this entire hill climb is going to be a bit more fighting, a bit more collecting. And so basically I'm gonna explain a little bit more about the game as we go on. So Fate Samurai Remnant is the latest game that is not a remake from Type Moon. And this game was developed in conjunction with Koei Tecmo, who you might be aware of Muso legends, like the Warriors games in many different variants. Recently releasing, you know, Warrior Abyss, and other very fun games, or Age of Calamity games. And this game is pretty close to Age of Calamity games in the sense that you do have a specific amount of you have goals that you have to accomplish that are more story-based than actually control of the map based. So it's actually very interesting to develop story inside of the game, like by also using mechanics of fighting that is typical of Muso's. Now with this we get to access one of the other plants that we need to collect. I'm gonna get into another fight. You might have seen basically our main tools in the run are gonna be the Earth Stance Valor Strike, the Void Stance Valor Strike, because this one does extra little bit of damage. Not always necessary, but can be pretty useful. The Affinity Gauge on next to Yuri's portrait, the 6 dots, those will let us launch super moves with Saber, and the other thing is magic, which is used by collecting gems. Those little gems, sometimes you will see a number pop up with a little red diamond. That's the gems indicator. But with this, we finally collected everything, we took care of some enemies, and now we're inside the port, and we get a little discussion with someone called Dorothea, who is very interesting, and also is accompanied by someone very tall. Maybe someone very suspicious. In any case, we're going back home, and today is a rest day now. Although we are being tasked with upgrading our workshop for something specific, but I don't really remember it because this is New Game Plus, we already have everything unlocked, and nothing really matters. Very good Valor Striking right now. And then next we're gonna have access to our Rogue Servants. Rogue Servants are now gonna be able to accompany us during the fighting. As you can see here, Rogue Lancer, who we fought earlier, Sportrait just appeared next to us. It doesn't really matter. Also here we have a little bit of a Void stance change. Very quick dispatching, very good. And yeah, to note, this affects the DLC section, because in DLC, we get access to more servants, like Ibuki Doji, which we just equipped. Ibuki Doji is part of the DLC 1, and she is definitely the best servant, although I have my favorite, Kishimojin, on the back. But here also, we just started a fight with a Rogue Berserker, and everything is fine. We're just gonna be using some Valor Strikes, refill them with our Culinary Delights, and continue on forwards. Also, nice Schism use here to continue the stun. And a little bit of magic, and we're in. Extremely fast, incredible fighting. So now, in this little bit of travel, we're gonna start here from Rokugo Ohashi, which is another giant bridge on the outskirts of Tokyo. And here we have a little bit of a fight with some pirates. Now those pirates are very easily dispatched, as you can see. Just that we needed to wait for them to enter the arena to be actually, you know, targetable by the Valor Strike. The Valor Strike will grab everyone in the arena, but if they're not in the arena, we can't deal the damage. So this is what's gonna happen here again, as Neo is gonna travel very close to the edge of the arena that we need to go towards, and just wait for all the enemies to gone through. Now our goal brings us to Heikenji, where we're trying to understand who is trying to affect us, and why are those pirates attacking us for some reason. Now Heikenji currently is being blocked, so we're gonna have to go on a little bit of a quest where we go around and unlock the path. So this is gonna be in two fights. The first one is gonna be Iori only, because Saber got caught. Very, very simply got caught. Now here there's gonna be a little wait, there's gonna be more enemies, as you can see they're coming over from the streets. Here I usually like to do a little bit of fireball for the joke, but 2 strikes from a jumping heavy earth stance one is enough to be extremely powerful and destroying everyone. And now we just have to wait for a little bit of dialogue. And now we can unlock this section. You might also be wondering what is happening when the screen gets a little bit darker and a line of blue is going forwards. This is actually a direction button. If you have played any of the BioShock games, this is basically the same type of mechanic, where you can press a button and the direction is indicated to us. Now, next fight, we're gonna be fighting the Soul Beast. Very fast, and then we immediately go into a Breaking Wave, another affinity technique which grabs all of the bats that was summoned right after we broke the shell gauge. I should explain a little bit more about the fight, even though we don't see much. Enemies have a health bar, all of them, but some enemies, which are considered mini-bosses, get what we call a shell gauge. Shell gauges are just your typical, like, armor build, that when they're broken, the enemy is now completely vulnerable and you can defeat them, you can actually deal damage to their HP. In this game, dealing damage to the shell gauge is probably one of the main reasons how you can lose time. And so this is why you either try to escape the shell gauge arrival, or you actually just force brute it with some power moves. In New Game, we would use a lot of rolling rapids, but here, because of the strength of Yuri, a lot of the shell gauges can just be removed by using the Valor Strike. Now with this, the pirates are being defeated, but we're also on a rush to find more about the pirates, because some of them are leaving, and we're kind of wondering, well, where are they going? Do we know where they're hidden? And we get pulled into another Spirit Farm conflict. Now, this one is one of the funnest Spirit Farm conflict because it is just all about not even trying to do fighting. Here, a path that is going to directly to our main base, but don't worry, we can just cut the path by using a Darting Dragon very quickly. And now we're just gonna cover the entire path by going up. Then down left, and then down left again. And you can see that path that the guy was trying to go directly to us, just gone. Nothing else is here. So here, everyone disappears, and we get access to Kanagawa Port. And Kanagawa Port is gonna introduce us to a little bit of a fight with Rogue Archer. And this is why we do a Valor Strike on those enemies, and then we're gonna switch to the Void Stance to deal more damage to our servant fight. Here, Arjuna, Rogue Archer. Also, you might be, for a little bit of Fate fans, yes, this is the same Tsubame Gaishi as Koji Sojo. I hope you enjoy that. Another use of Schism, and then we're out. Well done. Switch back to Earth, and very powerful. To explain also the stance section, basically you can see that there is a sort of quadrant with a single spot in the middle as well, and those are the 4 elements plus Void, and those are the different stances that Yuri can use for combat. Earth is the original one. You get also access to water in the beginning. Earth is more like defensive and heavy hitting, but kind of slow. Water is for decimating giant pools of enemies. Green is the more magic focused build, which is not actually that good. Fire is more of a damage, like taking damage and getting power out of it. And Void is sort of the ultimate technique, which unfortunately sometimes can be very slow for some fighting. But here, a little bit of management required to defeat this enemy. And ignore it using the Saber Intercept. Very cool. And next we're going to be cutting the path to this enemy that is on the top right, top left here. And now we don't have any enemies left on the map.
Yes.
And now Arjuna, who has been working with us now, is going to reach the end section of the map, while Yuri and Saber are going to reach this red section. More fighting using the Valor Strike. Waiting for another enemy to spawn. And another Valor Strike. And one attack seals the deal. Very, very fast. Well done. Now with this, it's time for Arjuna to do some fighting. Using the level 3 Heaven Fire on the affinity techniques. Rogue 7s only have the same number of techniques. They only have 4, a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, and then a Noble Phantasm Gauge expender. So it's very useful sometimes in New Game, but in New Game Plus you can just destroy enemies very fast. And Arjuna just proved us. But he can do it. Now with all of this, we can finally continue to Tamanawa, which is the next spot in our travels. And at some point we're gonna learn that there is something happening down next to the Buddha. So we're gonna fill up some bars very quickly. And prepare for some fighting. This game goes very fast, as you can see, like fighting, then fighting, then fighting. There's a lot of action happening at all times. With this, we took care of the pirates. There's gonna be another wave of them appearing. We're waiting for this second line. And very well done to use the Rolling Rapids beams situation to target the group that was already there, and then the one that was about to reach the limit of the arena. Very good. Now we're gonna go up, and we're gonna actually having a little bit of a meeting with another rogue servant. Welcome to Assassin. Assassin is a little bit annoying, but here you only need to defeat half of its life bar, so it's okay. I see the Schism hasn't done much of the damage, but it's totally fine. Just very good improvisation here from Neo by doing a Vile Strike and then covering the rest of the bar with the Agni's Crush Wave. But with this, we kind of know where we're at, and we have finally learned that the enemy is in Yokosuka. Now, unfortunately, the day has been long, so we're gonna have a little bit break before we get into Yokosuka. But with this, we get a lot of... we recover everything from our Spirit Font, and we get out. Doing more recovery because we're gonna get thrown into a lot of fighting pretty soon. Keeping cutscenes, and the day is done for this last spot of Chapter 2. Yes, it goes that fast. It's very quick. Now, Chapter 2 is usually the fastest, the longest of the chapters, although I will say Chapter 3 does make itself pretty long sometimes, so I hope you're excited. But here we're gonna go into Yokosuka, and Yokosuka is gonna be our dungeon for this last part of the chapter. We're gonna be thrown into a gauntlet of fights before we get into the boss fight, so this is the main situation where we're gonna need to actually be aware of when to do refills and how to be the best about it. Very good mix of Rolling Rapids and the Earth Stance Valor Strike. Very powerful. Reaching here, we're talking about how there's a magical barrier that impedes us. So we're gonna go the other way to try to kill the source of the energy for this magical barrier. Since this dungeon section is a little bit long and there's a lot of fighting all over, I would say it's a pretty good time for donations or any dialogue blurbs that you want to share with the host. As now we reach the first of the magical furnaces, which we remove this one and we need to take care of another one to access what's behind the barrier. Continuing forwards here, pretty big reveal because we get back into another fight with some ghosts. Thankfully the ghosts are very quick to kill. Just one Valor Strike, no shell gauges on them. But it's very impressive of Neo to remember everything. Like, I suppose there's notes to help with the entire situation, but also the fact that you need to not remember at any point to do your refills if necessary. For example, how many Valor Strikes are you at? Because if you need to do improvisation, it's actually pretty dangerous to not be aware of your own state of fighting. Waiting for more enemies. Here there's gonna be a small attack to complete with the stronger boss, stronger enemy. And next we're gonna have a section where it's just Saber. Here, Iori's gonna get trapped by trying to defuse this magic circle. And now we're gonna see some fighting with Saber. First of all, we're gonna do some breaking waves, which catches the bats at the same time. Very impressive every time. And then a little bit of a schism to take down most of the health of the serpent, and then doing a combo free with Saber, which is pretty powerful. And here we do a combo 4, and very good fight from Neo. Very well done. I see the switch to Ibuki Doji. Gonna be continuing forwards now that the path is unlocked. More fighting. Here is gonna be very quick, just a ball strike over them. Enemies with a little bit more health do require some help, but it's okay, and we're back full of gems. Now here, a fight where it's only Iori, and it's supposedly a challenge, but also you have access to your servant, and also Iori is level 100 and doesn't take no for an answer, so it's not an issue. More enemies waiting to get into the arena to get mowed down, and very well done. Now with this, we're finally unlocking the path towards the boat that is in the back. And that boat is actually the stronghold for Dorothy. Yes, because she is a master in this Holy Grail War that is the Waxing Moon ritual. More enemies having trouble getting in, but once again, Val striking, very powerful. Gonna be one more fight with some sea octopuses, who we call sea monsters. And there we go. And now, time for a boss fight. More culinary delights being eaten. Alrighty, so this boss fight has multiple phases, and this is why it's very important. Here we're gonna need to defeat all of the enemies very fast. And then we're gonna hit another wave. And then there's gonna be a cutscene which leads into Musashi getting into the fight. Musashi being Iori's stringer, but also currently a servant, because Musashi had died before. And also, this is not the same Musashi. This is Lady Musashi from another Fate franchise called Grand Order. We're here mostly trying to defeat the snakes, and then dialogue is going to continue, and here mostly waiting around. Here I believe that Neo is just kind of trying to refill gauges using the power of the Void Stance very quickly. Which is, you know, like wasting time because we have to wait for dialogue to be done. It's impressive how much damage is just being dealt at every second of the fight. It's very silly. And yes, enemies will spawn until the dialogue is finished, or at least the last line of the dialogue has started being read. Which I'll be in a few boxes if I remember correctly, so don't worry, everything will be fine, we'll get out very soon. It's actually here. You can see now that they're using Agni's Crush Wave to clear out enemies. That means we're getting into the end. Now with this, we get into a big boss fights with the big Orochi. And the first part is with Saber. We're gonna try to deal half of the Orochi's life using Schism, then using the Heavy Free for the damage. And then the Heavy 4. Very quickly dispensing damage. And trying to not spend all of the bar, because that bar will be shared with Musashi afterwards. Dealing a ton of damage. Next, Musashi is going to take the lead by once again doing a shock stream being the level 3, and then doing a lot of attacks. This is the Heavy 3, then this is the Heavy 2. Another shock stream. And there's the shell gauge gone. I'm trying to deal all of the damage now. And there it goes. Next we have a small fight with Rider, and here we're gonna use the Noble Phantasm because it deals a lot of damage and will break almost immediately the shell gauge. So lots of damage immediately, and also it downs the enemy instead of just stunning them. So it's very powerful to just stack the damage and continue stunning the enemy outside. And with this, Rider is gone, and we are very good. Also, Rider is not fully gone, but it's totally okay. And with this, Chapter 2 is done. We're gonna have a little bit of an epilogue for Chapter 2, and then we're gonna go immediately into Chapter 3, which is gonna be very interesting because we're gonna start seeing more dangers appear in the form of mind control. So now that we have defeated the giant Orochi and kind of pushed away Rider and Assassin, Yuri has a little problem. It's called Yuri's gonna go train and then his sister is gonna get kidnapped. What do you mean it's a small problem? It's totally normal. This is what happens almost 3 times during the actual procession of the game, which is very silly. For some reason, Kaya keeps getting captured. But here, this is just a little bit of a training scene where Yuri is fighting himself and to learn the fire stance, which doesn't really matter. We already have access to it, and we deal all of the damage. Dialogue is we're waiting for dialogue to be a cut over, obviously. And then once this cutscene goes, we just need to deal one little bit of damage, and then it's a win. There you go. So, Yuri's house is on fire now, but everything's fine, and Kaya's missing. So now we need to get a march on another section of the map, Koishikawa. But also, we're gonna have another session of those 2-pronged attacks on our ley line, and to deal with this, we're gonna have the ability to separate ourselves with Saber, leading Saber to another part of the map while we're doing something else. Saber is gonna go towards the bottom of the map, while Yuri is gonna take care of the top. I'm gonna quickly try to defeat as many enemies without actually defeating them. It's always better to just skip the fights than to try to fight them. Means we don't have to eat into our food in advance, and makes it much more nicer and faster to deal with threats. Example here, we just want to use a Saber Intercept, and now we're out. Now here, a little bit of direction for Saber to go downwards, and here Iori is going to take care of this source of ley line. Those enemies will come back to half bar after you did defeat them once, so very cool technique of managing those enemies very quickly. And another Valor Strike on the Soul Beast, and a Crushing Wave just afterwards. Now here there's going to be a Darting Dragon, and quickly rushing towards the red source because we don't really want to do some fighting. And we finally had Koishikawa. Now during Koishikawa, mostly what's going to happen is some fighting. There's going to be some more story related to Chiemon. So I wanted to talk about how the game's like story, gameplay, and speedrun story has been developing. So a lot of the development of the speedrun here has been on New Game Plus has been done by Harry McDowell and Alice Tsukino, and Neo joined pretty soon after. With a lot of players learning New Game Plus. Unfortunately, only one player has learned New Game, and that's me. But it's totally fine. I understand that New Game is a lot of commitment. It's 4 hours long, minimum. So it's very understandable that no one wanted to take on it. I guess I have just a lot of time. But basically, New Game Plus has been kind of developing slowly but surely with a lot of managing what is strong, and it very clearly showed that tools like the Agni's Crush Wave were very important, as well as the Valor Strike. And unfortunately, that made the requirements for doing a run of New Game Plus very demanding, because you need to basically make culinary delights, and you can only get 3 of them per entire cycle of gameplay of the story. So that means that you need to kind of do like some kind of New Game Plus 20 or 30 to get to the entire loadouts you need to do for the fighting. But it's totally fine. And once you're done with those, you get to run this very cool and very impressive running category. Also, Fatal Sword was not a thing until a later update in the series. The Fatal Sword difficulty came with DLC 1, although Fatal Sword was completely free. It was not directly with DLC 1, but it unlocked, as well as Apprentice, the easiest difficulty in the game, which is what you would run in general. There's also Sword Novice, Sword Expert, Sword Demon, and then Fatal Sword. All of those are different difficulties, and while it is pretty cool to have a varying level of difficulty, it does mean that we have a lot of categories for no reason, but it's still very interesting. And yes, the strategy do develop alongside by understanding what is faster in each category and each difficulty. Do you know the game is also filled, like, the game also has 3 different endings and a joke ending, so 4 different endings if you count that one. And currently, the best ending outside of the joke ending is the New Game Plus ending, which is why you will see that Chapter 6 at the end is very, very fast. Chapter 6 in the New Game Plus ending is absolutely ridiculously short. And that makes it for a run that is under the 2 hours on Fatal Sword if you have very good knowledge of the run. But with this, we managed some enemies, and Koishikawa is now a little bit less ridden with some with dangers. And also, we recovered. I say we recovered Kaya, but we actually didn't recover Kaya. But we're trying to find where our next clue is for finding Kaya, and because she clearly was moved around very recently since our attack on Koishikawa. And now we're gonna have another travel, and this one, we're gonna go to Shinagawa again. But there's a giant road ahead, so a little bit of more leyline conflict here. Here, directing Saber to go down, destroying the path for the top, for the left enemy, and here doing a Saber intercept on the right enemy, this giant spider, and very quickly dispatched. Very well done. Now this one is going to teleport very quickly, but it's okay. We're going to use the power of Shadow Stitching. Or... oh, I misread. No, we're not going to use Shadow Stitching immediately. We're going to just be using Saber Intercept to take care of it. One of the few mechanics also in those leyline conflicts is that if you manage to cut a pot, you'd get some affinity gauge back. It can be 1 to 2 bars depending on the on what you do with it. For example, here it's 1 bar, which is still pretty impressive, and it helps with collecting enough affinity gauge to defeat those enemies. Especially considering Saber Intercept does require 2 bars every time, so this is why it's pretty useful to have tools to recover very quickly. Here, Yuri just reached the end section. It's gonna be a quick fight. And then more Battle Strike. Oh. Missed attack, and then Battle Strike. And now the circuit is done. Now, with this section done, there's no more enemies, and we're kind of having a small stroll towards Kanagawa Port. And in Kanagawa Port, we're gonna actually be... oh no, this is Kawasaki Daishi. I forgot. Kanagawa Port is afterwards. But Kawasaki Daishi is where we're gonna find Dorothy. And Dorothy is just gonna tell us, hey, you're wrong about what you were trying to do. Go this way. And we just leave with a little bit of a fight. And now we're done. Very well done from Neo. Now we get into this little section here that would lead us to Kanagawa Port. And we're gonna quickly travel with some darting dragons and ignore most of the path and all of those threats above. And now we have Ibuki Doji. This is her level 2. Very powerful beam of power from a serpent. Very useful if you don't have the time for some refills, but also it's a beam that auto-targets, so it's very powerful and lasts a very long time. And we get a quick rolling rapids here. Because we still have some dialogue to go through, so actually using Vile Strikes would just be a waste of time and resources compared to the slower method of killing. Next we have a little bit of Remnant still going around. We kill them, and then we're going to continue a little bit of fighting before we get to a big fight with Lancer. Fighting this Oni. Going up. More food eating, and now we're gonna be dealing with some humans behind us as well. Another section that comes in, and we just do a giant bell strike, and all of them are taken care of. Very well done. Waiting, learning how to wait is very important. It's very, very specific, and you have to be very good because sometimes just missing one could mean you just lose a lot, and you can lose a little bit of time. And at this point, we're getting to the level of this is like very, very powerful time management. So here, a little bit of fight with Saber. We're gonna do some all three of our Vile Strikes. And we need to reach the 25% health remaining on Lancer's health bar. Finishing with the Agni's Crush Wave. A little bit of refill because we're gonna get thrown into a boss fight section very quickly. First of all, we're gonna be playing with Lancer against Rogue Lancer. Lancer fight, and here it's gonna be a level 3 2 times. Level 1, no, that's not level 1, that's level 2. More level 2. Or, no, I'm completely wrong, this is the base direct. And this is just time to manage Rogue Lancer's attack. I don't really use this attack because it's not that good on New Game, but on New Game Plus, it seems to be pretty powerful. Big chunk of life and final attack. And that's the level 2. I remember. We don't play a lot as Lancer in the game, so this is why sometimes it's difficult to remember. Now we get back into an Arjuna fight because Arjuna has been taken over. Our good friend is no longer a partner of us. But also, you can see in the background that Tamamo Arya, a servant we befriend in the beginning of the game, is in literal chapter 1, is also mind-controlled and gave a power boost to Arjuna. So we need to deal more damage to take down Arjuna here, using the Schism and some Void Stance attacks. Well done. And now we get another fight with the Rogue Berserker against Berserker. Very fitting. We do a Shock Stream, and then a dodge. Very well done. This dodge is very specific. Very specific timing. Very well done. Incredible. Obviously, in Fatal Sword, the damage is through the roof from enemies, so knowing your dodges is very important, especially since you can't heal at all. Here, we're supposed to be targeting half of Berserker's life, and before the dialogue is over, but here, just managed to finish it. Managing Berserker pretty well, and now switch to Archer. We're gonna do a level 3. And then a heavy 3 to deal all the damage, then a heavy 1, and then another level 3. And we're trying to deal all of the damage and finish the blocker. So a mix of level 2, level 3, not level 2, level 3. But all the moves to make it quick with those heavies and deal all the damage. Now here there's going to be a little bit of a breathing section because we're going to get into a section where there's not going to be much gameplay, but details about Saber's past are going to be revealed. Now, if you're pretty knowledgeable and if you know about how a sudden feud between two brothers in Yamato could have affected things, and who could be related to that, congratulations, you have won the Fate video game. But otherwise, I will not spoil it because Saber's name, unfortunately, learned during the run. I will give you a spoiler warning of when it appears on screen. But first of all, before we get into this section, we have a little bit of a funny section. First of all, we say hi to Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is fine, not brain-controlled. And now we're gonna go to Koishikawa, because we believe that there's a final rogue servant here. And that rogue servant is Cersei. And now we are back with the pork. Welcome to Pork Yuri. Cersei is known to turn humans into pigs. And here's the same thing. And now we're gonna be collecting some molly to make sure that Yuri is gonna return to his human form. Although it is very funny to see Yuri getting thrown up and getting uppies from Saber. Unfortunately, during this section, Yuri cannot fight, so we're gonna be doing all the fights with Saber, which pretty simple. Just do a level 3, a breaking wave, and very fast damage dealing. More jumping. More uppies. God, this section is always so funny. The reaction of people who are not aware is extremely amazing. Always worth it. More fights using breaking wave, taking down their shell gauge, and then dealing all the damage using another breaking wave. And we're out. And we just need to travel to our last molly section. Doing the little hops like this actually is the fastest way of moving around with Yuri in his pig form, so it's very, very funny to see that it's actually the best movement, and also very silly movement. And with this, we do another breaking wave, and another one, and this section is completely over. Yuri's gonna return to his beautiful human form, and we're gonna actually progress with the story. Now, I will say, for the next 6 to 7 minutes, I would highly recommend getting some donations read or any messages from your host, because it's pretty much a walking section where we don't do much. Once we get to the end of that walking session, I will be talking about the Saber fight, because we're going to be doing a direct fight with Saber. And in the meantime, let's enjoy this little valley travel inside Saber's mind.
大きにあだなすなんぞこの地で果て
Alright, we're back for the saber fight. So, after seeing the danger and the story of Saber, we're now faced with Saber themselves. And we're gonna be doing a little bit of Void Strike, a little bit of Void Vial Strike and everything, and don't worry Saber, you will be rid of the mind control very fast. Oh, Berserker! Berserker's magic. Very powerful. Then another Vial Strike. And then another Berserker. And then another Vial Strike. And with this, we reached half of the bar, and we're out. Very well done. Now here, unfortunately, Chapter 3 does not end on this beautiful reconciliation between Saber and Yuri, but actually on a terrible thing happening in Akasaka. Akasaka, where Zhang and Archer were located, and unfortunately the entire village of Akasaka is being burnt to the ground, and it's not the best. And the reason is, Archer finally got mind controlled, and tried to fight against the mind control, but unfortunately still dealt a lot of damage with his flaming arrows. So we're gonna travel through the town, dealing a lot of damage to some enemies until we get to Archer. A little bit of Schism here to help with the damage. Very well done. We're gonna get another fight in just a sec. Another Bow Strike, very powerful. Schism, and just like before, more damage, and that's enough. With a little Crash Wave on top. Another fight with a one-eyed Oni. So the system of Vial Strike, Schism, Vial Strike. And another one. All those additional enemies that just arrived in between. More food eating, and we get into the flames. Archer's fight is going to be in 2 phases. First phase is going to be in this house, and then the next phase is going to be in the reality marble that Archer is going to put us in, where we're going to be transported to the old era of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, where Zhou Yu, our Archer, was known as a magnificent tactician. A little bit of crash waving after some Valor Strikes, and another Void Valor Strike here to defeat the Shell Gauge. Or half of it, and another one to defeat the other half. Schism to deal a lot of damage, and then we finish with some Void Stance damage. Very well done. And with this, Chapter 3 is going to be over. We're going to have, once again, a little bit of an epilogue, and I'll be right back for when Chapter 4 starts. Psych, we're not finishing yet. So here we get to see Ibuki Doji actually doing a lot of carnage on Lancer, because we don't get the chance of recovering here. So having Ibuki Doji is a very powerful tool. Ibuki Doji fights by using her heavies and then using her heavy 1 to expand on their power. Here using the heavy 4 to do the lightning, and then going into heavy 1 to deal more damage. Ibuki Doji is clearly the best, although I have my little affection for Kishimoji, the DLC-free boss fight. Also, the Tornado is the heavy 3, if I remember correctly. And here we go for a little bit of a level 3, dealing as much damage as we can before Lancer goes down. Very well done. And with this, we actually get into the entire end section of Chapter 4. So, unfortunately, Archer is dead, and Lancer is now back to his senses, but we don't know what's happening with Dorothy and Yui Shosetsu. Yui Shosetsu being one of the masters in this fight. And here, we kind of learn that Yui has also gone Rider, being mind-controlled, and is in danger. So we save Yuri from sudden danger. And now Chapter 4 starts. And here we can see Tsuchimikado having control over a good amount of the cast of the roster of servants around, taking almost every rogue and every normal servant. There's only a few people still not taken by Tsuchimikado, and it's mostly Saber, Gilgamesh, and Cersei. Although Cersei is not really, we don't really know about Cersei right now. We're gonna know about Cersei in a few minutes. But first, we defeat some enemies that are related to Tsuchimikado, some Onmyoji, who are basically diviners? Is that how I would call them? Now we go to Yoshiwara, because Yoshiwara is now lacking Rogue Berserker, and we kind of need to have a talk with Takao Dayu, who is in charge of Yoshiwara. To note, Berserker Musashi is not taken over by Tsuchimikado, but she is not here right now, so the town is kind of defenseless in a sense. And we can see this by the fact that we're gonna need to rescue some citizens from a sudden break of monsters. Plus some bats, dispatch with Valor Strike. Then an Agni Crash Wave to take care of some fungi. And then the Cursed Lantern taken care of by a Valor Strike, a Schism, and then another attack. But it's not the sole enemy spawn. You're gonna need to travel all the way back to the other side of the town. Another danger zone. This Blue Oni, we once again Valor Strike, defeat the Shell Gauge, Valor Strike, deal all the damage as we can, and quickly finishing with a Schism and a few normal attacks. Going forwards, we're gonna meet up with Skinoshin, a good friend of Yori, who unfortunately is way in over his head in trying to defeat this Soul Eater, so we're gonna be taking care of it. Using our good methods and dealing all the damage. And now, right after, we get a Cursed Lantern and a One-Eyed Oni in the fight, but again, not a problem. And now we can return to the Takao Dayu estate, because we have now solved the situation. And now we learn that the situation can be resolved by going directly to Ueno. And we're gonna do that by going to a Spirit Conflict. You can see Ueno and Kaneji on the other side of Ueno, but here we're gonna do a little bit of Spirit Conflict management, where the lines between the fonts disappear and re-change afterwards. Something weird is happening. But it's okay. Very well done managing those enemies. More enemies are gonna spawn out of Ueno, but we're pretty fine doing a Saber Intercept. Very well done. And right now what we're trying to do is we're trying to reach this yellow source, because this yellow source is actually our good friend. Who is our good friend? Well, it's Cersei from Koishikawa. Now Cersei is gonna actually reveal the true side of the real spirit font that we've been trying to manage, and not the best. We're gonna need to strike right into the heart of Ueno. But to do that, it's pretty simple. You just go onto the left, use a darting dragon, and you go inside Ueno immediately. Now, unfortunately, the city of Ueno has been kind of emptied in a way, but also locked down by some mysticism magic. So we're gonna need to go the long way around by going all the way to this boat and using it for travel purposes. Bat spawn. Take care of the bat spawn. Pretty well done. Another forwards. And we're gonna get into another fight with some little fox familiars and a Rakshasa warrior. But it's okay. Very easily defeated. We love Schism. Schism is an amazing power tool. Very expensive, level 3, but still pretty useful. Now here we're gonna get into another section, and we're joined by Dorothy. And beware for spiders. This is gonna be an arachnophobia zone. I will tell you when the arachnophobia warning is off. Which is gonna be actually... Oh! I thought that was gonna be a Drogoon. But no, we're going immediately into a Nue, which is not a spider, but just another yokai. And we deal with it the normal way. We can continue forwards. Here, going into this little section. Oh! Doing the fight instead. Oh, yeah, I guess it's faster on New Game Plus, but there is a way of dodging this fight. By going on the left side before the fight. And reaching this door, we actually will reach the big section and a few boss fights in a row. First of it is Lancer being powered by Rogue Lancer being powered by Atama Aria. And that section is pretty difficult because you do not get to eat. You are in constant fight mode for the next few minutes. Now, thankfully, just 3 Valor Strikes are necessary to reach the next point of the fight, in which Rogue Assassin joins the fray and is also powered. But we also have Rogue Saber joining us, and we're waiting for this shell gauge to appear, and actually making sure that we're dodging everything. Using the riposte, and using the level 2 to kind of manage both into a corner and deal all of the damage as best as we can. Look at that, the shell gauge is being destroyed. We go in then into a heavy 2, and then we get into another section, although Assassin did unfortunately leave the corner. So we're gonna need to put it back in there in some way. Which means that there's very much a possibility of improving the run, and it's very interesting. Continuing the fury of heavy 2s. Nice riposte. This is very much improvisation here because, yeah, that was expected. I remember this death. But it's okay, we can just load up from the save, and the save is gonna be just before the fight. To note, yes, outside of Fire Sword, you would have been able to just restart the fight from that point. But unfortunately, here in Fatal Sword, we do not have this benefit. The retry button is not available outside of one fight. And that's the tutorial fight against Lancer, and I know that because I tried. So, once again, into Lancer fight. 3 Valor Strikes. I'm gonna return to another section of Horsey time with Piso, the Rogue Saber. Once again, returning heavy 2s, then level 2s. Very powerful technique. Breaking the bar and the gauge on Assassin. And breaking the gauge on Lancer. And way better executed. Well, very well done. Very well recovered. Now, no more Lancer, only Assassin to deal with. Nice dodge. Heavy 2. Heavy 2. Ooh. Nice riposte. Continuing with the level 2s. And now that the gauge is over, more damage. And using the Noble Phantasm. Sir, what are you doing with all of those buffaloes to which you have attached the fireworks? I guess? Ah, terrible, terrible. Now next we have a fight with Rogue Berserker. And it's with our own Berserker. Musashi is going to be using a couple of shock streams and... oh, a clash. This has not been shown before. A clash is when two attacks collide with each other and you get into this little mashing button fight. But using the shock stream to break the super attack that was coming and stunning Rogue Berserker, and now breaking the gauge and time to defeat Samson as best as we can. More riposte. Nice dodge, even though it was not a perfect dodge. And here we're gonna get the shell gauge, the second shell gauge applied. Plus the second hit. Ooh, that was very fast. This move is very difficult to dodge. Very well done from Neo here. And we're going into some Noble Phantasm here. Very, very pretty. Arc stream, and with this, with the stun, it should be enough. Let's go. Well done. And with this, our little boss fight section is over. And next we get into the story choosing, story selection. Because of how the game works, this is the point in which the story will deviate. Now, Chapter 5 will be the same, well, almost the same all the time. But for the sake of New Game Plus, since New Game Plus ending is always dictated by one action in Chapter 5, we can just select the shorter path in Chapter 4, which is the rat route. Rat route will lead us into Kaneji, while the snake route would lead us all the way down to Yokosuka to fight off Assassin who has been taken over, and with the help of Dorothy and Musashi. Here, Musashi is gonna go alone fighting fighting in Yokosuka, while Yori is gonna go defeat Tsushimikado in Kaneji. Now here, using Kiso's Rook Saber's magic trick, very powerful. Using a schism, taking care of the giant yokai. And now we can continue our fight into the ley line. The next spot is going to be the One-Eyed Oni. A little bit of food consumption, and we go back in. More Vow Strikes, more Schism, everything in good speed. We're back at 99 gems. I'm gonna do another Vow Strike on those, and then probably, yes, magic with Kiso. Very well done. Do note also in this section, Kiso is going to be accompanying us, so no Ibuki Doji power, which is a bit sad, but Kiso here is very important to this section, so it's kind of understandable that he is going to be accompanying us towards the rat route section. Now we finally reach Kaneji, and Kaneji is home to Tsushimikado. His lair. And it's full of spiders and everything. And also, a giant Rakshasa warrior, but everything's fine. Now we're gonna reach our next fight, which is gonna be a new way, but it's okay once again. Fighting those enemies is pretty simple when you're level 100 and you have all of the tools in your position. Very impressive every time. It looks simple, but it is very, very specific actions, and the execution is very nice. So Kiso here gets taken over, well, is trying to fight against the taking over, but still needs some help, and we're gonna wash him away with some giant serpents of water. Don't worry, the corruption is gonna go away. You're gonna be all new and nice and all so clean, Saber. To note here, I forgot to mention it, but what is happening here is a substitution gauge. You can actually switch to Saber or any of the Rogue Servant you have equipped to for fighting, and that makes it so that sometimes you can just have a source of power out of nowhere that helps us with more fighting, especially if we don't get the ability to heal in the meantime. Now another boss strike, and here a Schism is going to be pretty much enough to take over Saber and finish this fight. A little bit of cutscene, and next we're gonna be actually see Mikado die immediately, and then we're gonna fight Chiemon, who has decided to take on us with Lancer. Now, fortunately, Lancer is in multi-phases, so we can actually focus her down very easily. First thing we're gonna do is some Void Vile Strikes to deal as much damage as we can to that shell gauge, and then slam with magic. And then Chiemon gives a command order to Lancer, and is now super powered, and we're gonna have to wait a little bit. And now Kiso joins us and actually helps us deal damage to Lancer. As you can see here, we're in control of Rogue Saber, so very fun time. And now we switch back into the substitute gauge. Very powerful move. Shell gauge reactivated, reusing the horse time, trying to pin Lancer into a corner. And now the heavy 2 fun starts now. Very well done. And with this, Chapter 4 is over. We get a little bit of dialogue between different characters, between Saber and Saber thinking about their current predicament and their memories. And now we enter Chapter 5, and Chapter 5 is going to go very fast. Chapter 5 is going to be all fighting and no stops before we get into Chapter 6, which is going to be very fast and is going to be a lot of fun. So Chapter 5 is basically Yui Shosetsu's time. Yui is finally launching an attack on us after we have defeated Tsushima Gedo. Also, Dorothy is dead. I'm so sorry. I love Dorothy. And this is why I prefer the Snake route. And why it's great that Snake route is the best route for New game. But here, our first thing is gonna be, we're actually launching an attack on Kanda, Yui Shosetsu's actual lair. So, we're gonna have a long spirit conflict before we go back into Asakusa, where we live, because we're gonna have a giant fight to the death. Here, a little bit of management on the spirit font. Making sure that Saber does correctly by directing. Going forwards to Ueno. Ueno is gonna let us ask Arya to unlock us a additional move. Is what I believe. Here we have a Darting Dragon in it. Yeah, so we get Tamamo Arya activated. We get the additional move every turn, which means we have double the moves now. And we're gonna need to unlock those fonts to get to break the barriers. Usually those barriers require you to get a certain number of specific fonts. Like, for example, the ones that we just went over are courage ones, and they up your defense. And the others from the sword... I think that the sword are courage, and the V ones are vitality. But here we cut the entire left section of the map, using Saber Intercept to take care of this giant Oni trying to attack us. Here we're not invoking Cersei, but we're using a Spirit Font Devourer to collect all of the Spirit Fonts, almost all of them next to us. And now we're using a Doubting Dragon because all that's left is going to Kanda. Kanda is about to be captured. We just need to do a few more things. Here, using an Earth Arts to teleport immediately to Tamamo Arya. And Kanda is now fully open thanks to this path. And here we're going to use another Doubting Dragon, meaning we have 2 additional moves. And we can finally cross over to Kanda with so little fights. It's very impressive every time that we have managed to route this down. So now we're going into the Stronghold, and we're getting introduced to puppets. Those puppets will explode when they're defeated, so not the best. We actually need to make sure that we're taking them all at once, or you can actually get hit for a big explosion. Gonna have another Arachnophobia, where we get a Jorogumo on the map. Very well done, using the Schism on the side, and then another Vile Strike. Arachnophobia gone. More food eating, and we're gonna get into another fight before we get into our boss fight for this section. This giant mechanical puppet is going to be our mini-boss, but the power of Vile Strikes is too strong. And there we go, waiting for the puppets to go inside, and now we have no issues with defeating all of them. You can see that we're getting very low on culinary delights, but it's totally fine. I can assure you that we have enough for the rest of the run. Using more magic, using Schism, and then returning to some Void Stance attacks to deal all of the damage on Assassin. And our assassin here, Li Shuen, who if you might recognize from Fate Extra, is defeated very quickly through the power of Void Stance. A little bit more Schism, more Void Stance attacks, and we're out. Well done. But here we see that Yui Shosetsu was actually in Asakusa all this time. So we're gonna have to go back to Asakusa before all of the ley line was broken. We broke our connection. We're gonna head towards the Sensoji shrine that is just in the city of Asakusa, who is finally open. And here's Yui. A long teased fight is finally happening. And this first fight is Yui and Ryder together. Now, Ryder has this bad tendency of getting a shield in front of them, and this is why dealing the Valve Strike immediately is very powerful, because it basically deals all the damage necessary to break that shield. And now we're doing another Void Valve Strike. And you might also notice that Yui was downed, and when the master is downed, their servant actually takes some damage when some damage to the shell gauge and or to their HP. So it's very powerful to actually take down the master in those situations. But nice management, and now we get back with some more fights. Although first, we're gonna have a little bit of a big section, because Ryder's identity has been revealed, and also they summoned this giant six-legged cow. Do not ask why. But here, it's gonna be necessary to eat, because otherwise we're gonna be sent immediately into fights. The first, the ley lines used for this fight, the ley lines we're taking down are used to power the giant bovine, and so we're using our three friends right now: Lancer, Berserker, and Yori and Saber to defeat all of them. Lancer doing a lot of damage with this heavy 5. And then using the heavy 2 to deal a lot of damage. And going into the level 3. Before going back into the heavy 2. And then dealing all the damage. Also hoping that Gaki is going into the circle. But all the damage being dealt. Also, it applies the fire debuff, which means that enemies take a lot of damage in one go. But here, getting to the Noble Phantasm and dealing all of the damage. Oh, enemies are ripe for the picking. Just need some heavy 2s and we're done. And a level 3 for the finish. Well done. Next, we're going to be dealing with Musashi. Musashi is going to be having 3 fights. No, 4 fights in her section. One is going to be against Bats, then there's going to be a Warrior, if I remember correctly, and then a Noni, and then 2 Nues. Now the nice thing here is that between the fights you have the opportunity to eat, so using Shockstream here and then eating some food back to refill the affinity gauge, very powerful, very useful. Rakshasa Warrior, 1 Shockstream, and then we're going for a heavy 3 and eating all of the damage. Let's go. More feeding. Gonna be another shock stream. This time defeating a Soul Eater. And the heavy one just to do a quick hit. Very powerful, very impressive. We have another section coming right up. Now, this small enemy is pretty cute, but I promised you some news. Where are they? They might be here. Also, Noble Phantasm loaded up, so all the damage is now gonna be dealt. Only remaining are the two Nues, which we can just slam with some heavy ones. And the final shock stream. Well done. And next is Yuri. And Yuri is gonna be dealing with some spiders again. So Arachnophobia warning. First is a Jorogumu with some spiders. Nice charge on the attack. And all the damage. Now next is a giant spider lady. A giant arachne is now on the field, and we're gonna take it down using our tools once again, and finishing with a Void Stance attack section. While Schism is being released, and very well done, the arachne is now done. Now, the cow cannot stabilize itself, so we're gonna have to deal with an actual boss. Rider. And thankfully for this fight, we have Kiso! Kiso is joining us and dealing his best heavy 2s. Trying to eliminate as best as possible the shell gauge. And all the damage as best as can. While Ryder is currently riding this giant arachne-looking mechanism? I want to say exoskeleton. But the next is we're gonna be fighting a third phase here of Ryder. More shell gauge to be defeated. And now we even get the hoof prints of the giant bovine attacking us. Using the power heavy 2s to deal so much damage. And now the fourth phase where everything is on fire and everything is danger, but we get into Noble Phantasm using section, so not that much trouble anymore. Damage over using the substitute gauge to deal the last section of damage, and Rider is finally done. And here it is time to make sure that you do not look at the screen if you do not want to know the name of Saber. I warned you, you shouldn't be looking at it. But with this, Chapter 5 is on its last section, where Yuri and Musashi's pupil and student, like pupil master's situation, is coming to an end. Let's see if the pupil is stronger than the master now. Now we do not need to recharge the affinity gauge anymore. The next few fights will no longer require the affinity gauge. First of all, this Musashi fight is probably one of the hypest. It's one of the funnest fights. There's so much to dodge, there's so much to learn, and making sure that you do your best in this fight is amazing. Now, here, we're actually not going to be using some Valor Strikes, because using Valor Strikes is not really useful, since we're going to need them afterwards. You remember how I said we should not be eating, we're not going to be eating affinity strikes. Well, that was also our last meal. We're going to be fighting Musashi and then immediately getting thrown into another fight afterwards. So this is why here, instead of the Valor Strikes, Neo is using the magic attacks. And also doing a lot of ripostes. Very well done. To deal all of the damage when Musashi is in a weakened state. Now Musashi is part of the bosses with free shell gauges, so this is our third phase. And she's gonna do her special, where she's gonna be dealing a lot of damage. But thankfully, the magic help us stop her. And we are now halfway through the last shell gauge, very close to finishing this fight, dodging this giant laser attack. Doing more of this giant laser attack again, but dodging it, using the magic to interrupt the loading. More riposting. And there we go. Very well done. And with this, Chapter 5 is done. Musashi leaves happy to have fought and be bested by their students. And here, you missed it? This was the selection for the next ending. And here, what we chose is to not destroy the Waxing Moon Ritual goblet, because it reveals Yuri's dream. A dream of living in forever war. In the meantime, Chimon is not having a great time. And the Forever War, unfortunately, means that it's against Saber, who has experienced Forever War, and is not really a fan of it. So, a fight between the two starts, and all that is left is to see who is the strongest. A heroic spirit from the past, or Yuri, who has defeated their master. Now, Saber here in this is another free shell gauge enemy, so it's gonna take a little bit of time to go through, but this is the final fight. Once Saber's life bar is completely depleted, it is game over. It is game done. Run is over. So, in the meantime, I would like to once again thank Neo for allowing me to do commentary for this submission. And again, if you want to have, if you're having Neo over for this run, I will probably be on commentary unless something happens to me. But yeah, very excited to see FSR, especially Sword Demons, Fatal Sword. Fatal Sword is amazing and showcases all the strengths of New Game Plus while also being the hottest difficulty of them all. And yeah, New Game Plus is a very fun category. I am not personally a runner of New Game Plus, but I do want to try it out at some point. And it would be very fun to actually learn this category in full. And now, it's time for Valor Strike Unleashing. Going to dodge all the attacks. Very well done using this long attack. Final hit. More riposting. Very well done. Here doing the Berserker Crash. The Void Stance attack speed is now lowered, which is not the best. But we do have magic to heal us up, so everything's fine. Gonna be using even more Valor Strikes here. Ooh, big damage here. Just going into Fire Stance, and oh no! Not at the last second. Thankfully, we have the Earth Stance recovery. It is a half a chance of actually getting back on the feet, so... Very well done. And the end of the fight will be very shortly upon us. More damage, using all of the damage that we can against Saber. At 1 gem, we do not have any more gems. We have to use the last of our Valor Strike. Stay away from the giant explosion. And... time! Very well done, Neo. But yeah, I highly suggest you pick Neo's run. Thank you again, Neo. I am delighted to be your commentator, and especially this commentator for this submission. And I want to say once again that I was GP, also known as Cute Fangies. I will be Neo's English voice in English, if you do have Neo in your event. And thank you for watching. I will leave you with the rest of the credits and the video, and I will say goodbye. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for watching us.